Ava's shift was almost over. The zoo had gone quiet, the kind of quiet that comes only when the last visitors are long gone and the cages hum with low, secret life. She carried her clipboard, her keys, the soft smell of hay still clinging to her uniform. At the gorilla enclosure, she paused. The silverback, massive, still as stone, was watching her. She had seen him 100 times before. But tonight, something in his stare pinned her where she stood. When she moved to turn away, it happened. His arm shot through the bars with sudden force. Fingers thick as branches wrapped around her sleeve. The grip was strong. Too strong. "Easy," Ava whispered, trying to keep her voice calm. "Let go." But he didn't. Her heart pounded. The other keepers shouted from down the hall, their voices rising in panic. She tried to tug free, but the gorilla only tightened his hold. Not aggressive, not violent, almost pleading. His eyes locked with hers. Dark, unblinking, as if begging her to understand something she couldn't see. Ava froze. What was he trying to tell her? What would you do if a gorilla refused to let you go? Subscribe to see what happens next. The moment Ava freed herself, her arm still tingling where the silverback's hand had gripped her, she staggered back. Another keeper slammed the gate shut. Metal rang against metal, echoing down the dim corridor. "Don't get too close," the head keeper barked. "He's unpredictable. You're lucky he didn't pull you straight through." Ava nodded, though her pulse was still hammering. She knew aggression when she saw it. That wasn't what this had been. His fingers had curled not to harm, but to hold. His eyes had burned with urgency, not rage. The others left grumbling, muttering about the long hours and restless animals. But Ava lingered. Through the bars, the gorilla paced. Heavy steps, back and forth. The thud of his weight pressed into the earth. Each time he stopped, he turned his head toward the far corner of the enclosure, then back at her. It was deliberate, too deliberate. "What is it?" she whispered. The silverback raised one arm, slow and steady. He pointed. Ava followed his gaze. Nothing but shadowed straw, damp rock, and a faint glimmer of water in the trough. Still, the air felt charged, as though the shadows were hiding something alive. "Ava!" The head keeper's voice cut the spell. "Clock out. You've done enough for one night." She swallowed her words. If she spoke, if she said she thought the gorilla was trying to communicate, she'd be laughed at, maybe worse. Back in the break room, she tried. "He wasn't just holding me," Ava said quietly. "He was showing me something." The head keeper looked up from his paperwork with tired eyes. "Showing you? He's an animal. He doesn't like change. Doesn't like staff sticking around after hours. That's all you saw. Agitation." But he pointed. He flailed. "No," she pressed. "It wasn't random." A chair scraped. The older keeper, Marla, spoke from the corner. "I've been here 20 years. They don't point. They gesture, sure, beat their chests, throw things. But pointing? That's not instinct." "Exactly," Ava whispered. Her voice trembled. It was something else. Something he wanted us to see. The head keeper sighed. "You're green, Ava, and too soft-hearted. If you keep imagining stories every time an animal looks at you, you'll burn out in a month." The word stung. But deeper still was the ache of leaving the enclosure behind, because she couldn't shake his eyes. That strange intensity. That desperate silence. That night, sleep refused to come. Ava tossed in her small apartment across from the zoo. Each time her eyes closed, she saw his hand gripping her sleeve. She heard the scrape of his pacing. She felt the pull, not of muscle, but of intent. She rose before dawn. By the time the sun bled orange across the rooftops, she was back at the gates. Inside, the morning air was cool, damp with dew. She walked the paths before the crowds arrived, clipboard in hand as a disguise. At the gorilla habitat, she froze. He was already waiting. The silverback sat near the glass, broad shoulders hunched, eyes locked on hers the instant she appeared. He rose, slow and deliberate, and walked the fence line. One turn, another, a third. Then he stopped. Again he pointed. toward the shadows. Her throat tightened. She moved closer, her breath fogging against the glass. She squinted into the corner. The straw lay uneven, mounded. The rocks seemed darker than usual, as if damp. She thought she heard. No, imagined. A sound beneath the murmur of the waking zoo. "Good morning." Marla's voice startled her. The older keeper shuffled over, coffee in hand. "You're here early." Ava nodded, eyes glued to the gorilla. "He's doing it again." Marla frowned. "Doing what?" Pointing. The silverback lowered his arm as though he understood their conversation. He stared between them, chest rising heavy, nostrils flaring. Marla sighed, rubbing her temple. "Listen, you're not wrong that he's different. Smarter than most. But don't get carried away. We've all seen things we can't explain. You watch animals long enough. You start to project. Just keep to your duties." But Ava couldn't. By mid-afternoon, she slipped back. Tourists pressed against the railings, laughing as the gorillas lounged or lumbered across the enclosure. Children smeared their hands on the glass. Cameras clicked. Nobody noticed the silverback's pacing. Nobody noticed the way he kept glancing toward her, then toward the shadows. Ava noticed. Her stomach churned. She wanted to climb inside. She wanted to see what lay in that dark corner, beneath the straw. But the rules were clear. No unnecessary entry. No keeper inside without approval. And approval wouldn't come. By closing time, the zoo emptied. The air thickened with the smell of hay and feed. The gorillas retreated to the rear, enclosure, where night quarters waited. Still, the silverback paused before leaving. He turned, met her eyes one last time, and pressed his massive hand to the glass. A plea, silent, unshakable. That night, Ava stood at her window long after midnight. She could see the faint outline of the enclosures beyond the treetops. The city hummed in the distance, but the zoo lay dark, quiet, secretive. She pressed her palms together. Her chest ached with the weight of choice. Trust the head keeper. Follow the rules. Pretend this was nothing more than agitation. Or trust the animal. Trust those eyes that burned with unspoken words. Her hand trembled as she reached for her keys, because she already knew which choice she would make. The zoo at night was another world. Empty paths. Lights dimmed. The only sound was the hum of distant generators and the lonely rustle of leaves. Ava's shoes clicked against the pavement, too loud in the silence, her heart matching every step. She shouldn't be here. Every sign, every rule, every warning told her so, and yet she moved forward. The gorilla's stare haunted her, the way he had pressed his hand to glass, as if giving her the choice. She had tried to sleep, tried to push the image away, but something in her chest wouldn't let go. At the service gate, her key trembled in the lock. Metal turned with a soft click. She slipped inside. The enclosure loomed before her, shrouded in shadow. She held her breath. At first, silence. No movement, just the heavy outline of rocks and straw. Then, out of the darkness, he appeared, the silverback. His massive frame moved toward the bars. Each step measured, his eyes glowing faintly under the dim security lights. He didn't charge. He didn't threaten. He simply stood, waiting. Ava's pulse surged. She gripped the railing. "I'm here," she whispered, barely a sound. The gorilla lowered his head, then slowly shifted his gaze toward the corner, always the corner. Ava followed his stare. And then she heard it, a faint noise, weak, fragile, almost lost in the night air. A sound no visitor would ever hear over the noise of the day. A whimper, thin, trembling, like a child crying. Ava's body froze. Her mouth went dry. It couldn't be. She leaned closer. The sound came again, tugging at her chest with invisible hands. Her eyes strained against the shadows. She saw a movement in the straw, tiny, almost hidden, something alive. The gorilla turned back to her. His eyes burned with urgency. Then, to her astonishment, he stepped away from the bars, back into the enclosure, a silent invitation. Her throat tightened. She knew what crossing that line meant. No approval, no protocol. Her job, her safety on the line. But she couldn't walk away now. Hands shaking, she unlocked the keeper's door at the side of the enclosure. The hinges creaked, sharp in the night. She slipped inside. The air smelled of earth, musk, and damp straw. Her boots sank into the bedding. She moved slowly, every nerve on fire. The silverback watched. He didn't lunge. He didn't roar. He circled her once, low and deliberate, like a guard dog assessing an intruder. Then he stopped between her and the shadows. Ava froze. "Please," she whispered. "I need to see." The gorilla shifted, blocking her with his body. He let out a low rumble deep in his chest. Not a threat, something else. A warning. Still, she could hear it. That sound, faint, desperate, the cry of something that needed her. She took a step forward. The silverback growled low, eyes blazing. He planted himself in front of her, chest heaving, arms braced wide as though he'd block her forever. Ava's heart pounded so hard it hurt. "There's something there," she breathed, tears stinging her eyes. "I know it. You brought me here. But now you won't let me?" The gorilla's nostrils flared. His gaze flickered between her face and the corner. The cry rose again, faint but sharper this time, cutting through the silence like a blade. Ava's knees nearly buckled. Every instinct screamed to run, to obey the rules, to get out while she still could. But she couldn't, not now. Her hands shook as she slowly knelt, lowering herself in submission, eyes downcast. She remembered the training, never challenge, never make yourself a rival. She whispered softly, words spilling without thought. "I'm not here to take it. I just want to help. Please, let me see." The gorilla loomed above her, a shadow against the dim light. For a long, suffocating moment, he did not move. His breath rumbled in the stillness. Then he stepped aside. Not far, just one shift of his massive frame, enough to leave a gap. Ava's chest heaved. She crawled forward, inch by inch, her palms pressing into the straw. And there, in the hollow of shadows, she saw it clearly for the first time. A bundle, small, fragile, fur damp with sweat. A tiny infant gorilla. Its limbs trembled as it whimpered. So weak, she feared it might vanish if she blinked. Her heart cracked open. "Oh my God," she whispered. The silverback rumbled low behind her. Not anger, not threat. A sound that almost felt protective. Ava reached out, her fingers hovering inches from the infant. But before she could touch, the silverback moved. With a single step, he blocked her again. His massive hand pressed the ground between her and the tiny body. His eyes bore into hers. Not yet. Ava's throat closed. Tears burned her eyes. She understood. He wasn't letting her near. Not until she proved something. Not until he knew she could be trusted. The infant whimpered again, so faint, so fragile. Ava's whole body ached to scoop it up, to hold it safe. But she couldn't move. The gorilla's presence was a wall, and she realized with chilling clarity she was trapped inside with him. For a long, breathless moment, Ava stayed crouched in the straw, staring into the gorilla's unblinking eyes. His chest rose and fell like a slow drum, muscles taut, his body still a wall between her and the faint cries behind him. Then something changed. The silverback's gaze softened. His shoulders lowered. He shifted his weight, a massive hand dragging gently across the ground. And with a slow, deliberate step, he moved aside. The corner was no longer shadowed. The mound of straw parted with a trembling movement, a tiny arm flailing weakly. Ava's breath caught in her throat. The infant, barely larger than a human baby, its thin chest shuddered with effort. Its fur was damp, clumped from sweat and saliva. Its eyes squeezed shut as another weak cry broke the silence. Ava's whole body trembled. She pressed her hand to her mouth to stifle the sob rising inside her. "Nobody knew," she whispered. The silverback sank onto his haunches beside the infant, his giant frame curling protectively around it. He lowered his head, lips brushing the baby's fur, the way a parent might soothe a child. His rumble was no longer a warning. It was tender, almost mournful. Ava's heart cracked. She remembered the whispers among the staff. How one of the females had fallen ill weeks ago, gone suddenly weak. how she had died in the night, leaving the troop restless and confused. They had all assumed no young were left behind. The record showed nothing. No newborns. No survivors. But here, hidden, protected, shielded by a father's impossible will, was the truth. The male had kept the baby secret. All this time, every glance, every grip, every desperate gesture, it hadn't been aggression. It had been a plea. He'd been begging for help. Ava's vision blurred with tears. She pressed her hand against the straw, leaning closer, keeping her movement slow, deliberate, submissive. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "You've been taking care of it. Alone." The silverback lifted his head, his eyes glistening with something Ava couldn't name. He held her stare as though answering, without words. The baby whimpered again, curling weakly in the straw. Ava reached forward, but this time she didn't touch. She simply held out her hand, open, palm up, showing him she meant no harm. Her voice cracked. "You knew you couldn't do this forever, didn't you? You needed me." For several agonizing seconds, the gorilla did not move. His massive hand hovered above the straw. Then, slowly, impossibly, he slid his fingers aside, clearing the space between Ava and the infant. An invitation. A sob tore from Ava's throat. She moved forward inch by inch, lowering herself until her hand brushed against the tiny body. The baby's skin was hot, its breath shallow. Its little fingers gripped hers instinctively, weak but desperate. Her chest squeezed so tight she could barely breathe. "It's okay," she whispered, though her own voice shook. "I'm here now." The silverback leaned close, his head nearly touching hers. His breath warmed her cheek. For a heartbeat, she thought he might change his mind, snatch the infant back, end this fragile moment. But instead he stayed, watching, waiting. Ava cradled the baby gently into her arms. Its weight was almost nothing, a fragile bundle of bones and trembling skin. She rocked slightly, instinctively, like a mother soothing a child. The silverback gave a low, rumbling sound. Not anger, not warning. It was approval. And for the first time since stepping into the enclosure, Ava felt the wall between them fall. This was trust. Her tears spilled freely now, streaking her cheeks. "I promise," she whispered, clutching the infant against her chest. "I'll help you. I won't let anything happen to him." The gorilla's dark eyes stayed locked on hers, searching, measuring, until finally his body eased. He lowered himself into the straw beside her, massive arms curling around both her and the infant in protective arc. The world outside the enclosure no longer existed. There was only this fragile circle, one grieving father, one desperate infant, and one human who had finally listened. Ava's mind raced. How long had he been hiding this secret? How had no one noticed? The staff had dismissed his agitation, his pacing, his pointing. They had written it off as stress. But it hadn't been stress at all. It had been devotion, a refusal to let the last piece of his family be taken. And now, for the first time, he had chosen to share that burden. With her, the baby stirred against her chest, its tiny hand pressing weakly against her uniform. Ava rocked, tears dripping into its fur. She felt the warmth of the silverback's breath beside her, steady and calm, like a vow. She knew the truth now, the secret no one else had seen. The gorilla hadn't been holding her back. He had been holding her close, pulling her into his hidden world, into the only thing that mattered to him, a life, a bond, a fragile hope that could not survive without help. Ava's body shook with the weight of it, the enormity of his trust, the danger of discovery. She knew the others wouldn't understand. They would call for separation, for protocol, for control. But sitting there, cradling the trembling infant, she understood something deeper than rules. This wasn't just about survival. This was about love, and she would not betray it. The silverback pressed his massive hand into the straw beside her. His eyes softened, and in that gaze she read everything he could never say. Protect him. Ava tightened her hold on the baby, her tears falling fast. "I will," she whispered. "I swear it." The infant whimpered again, weaker now, fading into sleep against her chest. Ava looked down at him, then back at the father. And in that moment, beneath the shadows of the enclosure, she realized something unshakable. This wasn't a secret anymore. It was theirs. The next morning, Ava walked into the staff office with the weight of 2 lives pressed against her chest. She hadn't slept, not a second. She had stayed in the enclosure until dawn, cradling the infant as the silverback hovered beside them, his massive arms curled around both like a fortress. When the first keeper arrived, the secret unraveled. Within minutes, the office buzzed with shouts, questions, accusations. There was a baby in there this whole time. Impossible. We check records every week. How could we miss this? The director's face turned red with disbelief. You broke into the enclosure? Alone? At night? Ava stood her ground, though her voice trembled. I had to. He showed me. He wanted me to see. The room went silent. Then laughter, short, nervous, scornful. He wanted you to see? One keeper scoffed. Ava, these are gorillas, not people. She clenched her fists. Then explain this. Why didn't he hurt me? Why did he bring me to the baby instead of keeping it hidden? He trusts me. He knows I can help. The director slammed his palm against the desk. Enough. Protocol is clear. Infants are removed immediately for medical evaluation. It's unsafe to leave it in there, and dangerous to let the male keep it. No. Ava's voice cracked, but she didn't back down. If you take that baby from him, you'll destroy them both. You didn't see him. He's not just guarding it. He's grieving. That child is all he has left. Silence pressed down on the room. Finally, Marla spoke, her voice quieter than the rest. Is it true he let you hold it? Ava nodded. He gave it to me. On his own. The director's jaw tightened. Even more reason to separate them. If he's already surrendering the infant, then the transition will be easier. You don't understand, Ava whispered. He didn't surrender. He entrusted. There's a difference. He still wants to be there. He'll fall apart if you take the baby away. The argument stretched long into the morning. Some sided with Ava, shaken by the discovery. Others demanded rules be followed. The director scribbled notes, each word like a nail sealing the infant's fate. But then something happened that none of them could ignore. When the staff approached the enclosure with food, the silverback didn't move. Bananas, lettuce, sweet fruit, all ignored. He sat in the straw, arms folded across his chest, eyes fixed only on the door. Waiting. Hours passed. He didn't eat, didn't stir. The other gorillas grew restless, but he stayed perfectly still, a statue of grief and defiance. Ava approached the bars. The moment he saw her, his body shifted. His chest rose with a deep sigh. He reached one massive hand toward her, not aggressive, not desperate, simply waiting. Ava knelt by the glass, whispering softly, I'm here. I'm not leaving. The infant stirred weakly against his chest. The silverback pressed the tiny bundle close, then lowered his head, his eyes never leaving Ava's face. The staff watched, stunned. He won't eat, Marla murmured. Not unless she's near. The director's pen hovered midair. His lips pressed thin. That's manipulation, he said finally. He's making us choose. But we can't risk letting this continue. Ava turned, fire rising in her chest. It's not manipulation. It's trust. He's showing you what I already know. He won't survive this without me. Neither will the baby. The room erupted again. Keepers arguing, voices overlapping. Words like dangerous, reckless, protocol, attachment. Ava barely heard them. Her eyes were locked on the silverback, and his eyes were locked on her. Hours bled into evening. The debate dragged on. Finally, the director stood, his decision heavy in the air. We'll give it until morning, he said. But if the infant shows signs of decline, or if the male becomes aggressive, we separate them. No debate. Ava's stomach dropped. Morning. They were giving her one night. She pressed her palms to the desk. Then let me in. Let me stay with them. The director's eyes widened. Absolutely not. But Marla's voice cut through. Maybe she's right. Look at him. He won't eat unless she's there. And if he starves, the baby starves too. Do you want to explain that to the board? The director's glare could have burned stone, but slowly, reluctantly, he nodded. Fine. One night. You stay. But if anything happens, anything, you're done here. And the infant is removed immediately. Ava didn't care. She didn't flinch. She only whispered, "Thank you." That night, she entered the enclosure again, this time with the staff watching from the safety of the observation room. The silverback met her halfway, chest rumbling with a low sound that wasn't warning. It was relief. She sank into the straw beside him. The infant whimpered softly, tiny hands curling as though reaching for her. Ava gathered the baby against her chest, rocking gently. The silverback leaned close, his breath hot on her cheek, his massive hand resting near her knees as though anchoring them all together. For hours they stayed like that. The infant nursed weakly from a bottle Ava had brought, tiny gulps echoing in the still air. The silverback watched every movement, his eyes never leaving hers. When she offered food again, sweet fruit, tender leaves, he finally ate, only with her there, only with her voice softening the silence. Ava's heart ached with the weight of it. She knew this wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about trust, about bonds that went beyond cages, beyond rules. And tomorrow, that bond would be tested, because the director was right about one thing. Morning would demand a decision. Morning came heavy with dread. The staff gathered by the enclosure, waiting for the decision that would decide everything. Ava hadn't slept. She hadn't moved far from the infant, who now dozed against her chest with shallow breaths. The silverback stayed close all night, his hulking frame bent toward them, a silent sentinel keeping watch. When the director entered, the room stilled. He scanned the scene through the glass, Ava with the baby, the silverback beside them, his lips pressed in. Well, Ava swallowed hard. He ate. Because I was here. The baby nursed. Because I was here. If you take them apart, you'll kill them both. The director didn't answer. His eyes narrowed as he watched the silverback lean closer to nudge the baby with his lips, his massive hand curling gently around the tiny body, as if shielding it from the world. It wasn't aggression. It wasn't danger. It was love. And for the first time, the staff began to see what Ava had seen from the start. Days passed, then weeks. Ava was allowed inside under careful supervision, though soon, even the skeptics admitted she was the only one the silverback would accept near the baby. He shared the infant with her, handing it over, watching as she fed him, then taking him back into his arms. Each time his trust deepened. The baby grew stronger. His cries sharpened, no longer fading whispers but small bursts of life. His fingers gripped tighter. His eyes opened wider. Ava's heart soared each time she saw him gain strength. Each time she saw the silverback's relief when the infant stirred with vitality. At night, Ava stayed late. Sometimes she slept on a cot near the enclosure, sometimes on the straw itself when exhaustion overtook her. Always, the silverback remained close. His eyes followed her, but not with suspicion anymore, with something deeper, something she couldn't name. They had become partners, caretakers together, two halves of a fragile hope. Word of the discovery spread beyond the zoo, first to the town, then to nearby cities. Crowds came, not to gawk, but to witness. Parents pressed their children to the glass, whispering about the miracle of fatherhood and trust. News outlets wrote about the strange bond between the grieving gorilla and the young keeper who refused to abandon him. Some criticized. Some said it was unsafe, irresponsible. Others called it exploitation. But Ava didn't care. She knew the truth. Every day, she saw in the silverback's eyes the fierce devotion of a father, the fragile trust of a friend. And the baby thrived. Weeks turned into months. The infant clung tightly to his father's fur, eyes bright now, body steady. He tumbled in the straw, climbed Ava's arm aloud, giggled in small, chirping bursts that echoed like laughter. Each sound filled the enclosure with light. The silverback guarded him fiercely, yet never kept Ava away. When the baby crawled into her lap, he watched with calm certainty, as if he knew she belonged in their circle. The staff softened. Even the director, once so rigid, began to linger at the glass with quiet awe. He never admitted he'd been wrong, but Ava could see it in his silence. The community changed too. People who once feared the gorilla now spoke of him with reverence. They saw not a beast behind bars, but a father who had hidden his child out of love, who had risked everything to keep him safe until help came. And they saw the girl who listened when no one else did. On a late afternoon, when the crowds had gone and the sun dipped low, Ava sat cross-legged in the straw, the baby curled in her arms, dozing against her chest. The silverback sat close, his massive hand resting on the ground between them. For a long time, none of them moved. Just breath, just warmth, just the quiet rhythm of a bond no rulebook could explain. Finally, Ava rose. She carried the infant toward the viewing glass. The silverback followed, looming just behind her, his presence as steady as a shadow. On the other side of the glass, the world was empty now, the visitors gone, the pad silent. Ava held the baby up, his small face pressed against her shoulder, his tiny eyes blinking at the fading light. The silverback pressed his hand to the glass. Flat, immovable, a gesture both simple and profound. Ava mirrored it, placing her free hand against his, palm to palm, separated only by the cold barrier, joined by something stronger than walls. She whispered through the silence, "We did it!" The baby stirred in her arms, letting out a soft chirp, as if answering. The silverback rumbled low in his chest, his eyes glistening in the amber light. For a moment, Ava forgot where she ended and they began. They were one family, two species bound by grief, by trust, by the unshakable force of love. And in that quiet space, she knew this truth would never leave her. Some bonds defy fear. Some families are chosen by the heart. The silverback's hand lingered on the glass, steady, eternal. Ava pressed back, the infant safe between them. Two families, one promise, a bond beyond bars.